Welcome back, everyone. Well, now we have a fascinating conversation about the recovery from trauma. Who's going to help us figure this out? Dr. Vinita Mehta. She's a clinical psychologist and a journalist specializing in life transitions, relationship issues, depression, and anxiety. Dr. Mehta has also provided expert commentary for the Today Show, the Discovery Channel, Reader's Digest, and Men's Health. And I think she still continues to host the popular blog Head Games for Psychology Today. There she is. It's welcome to the show, Dr. Mehta. Welcome, Doctor.
Hi there. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. So I know our first topic is going to be covering recovery from trauma. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Sure, of course. So, trauma. I think we should first say, it's a big topic, and there are different types of trauma. There's the trauma that happens from something that is event-based, say from a natural disaster, something more serious like a school shooting, something that happens at a point in time. And then there is another kind of trauma, which is the kind of more repeated, consistent that happens over time. And that's one way that we understand it, and but ultimately, trauma is defined by how the person experiences it. So, that might be a good place to begin to understand it.
Yeah, actually, you know what? We'll use an example. We'll use the horrible tragedy over in Paris a few months ago. I know some people are going to wonder, can these people overcome their trauma? The ones who survived that were in those cafes as other people around them were getting killed.
Sure. So one of the things that happens when a person experiences a traumatic event or ongoing trauma is that the body goes right into the stress response. Our bodies become almost hyperactivated, and we become very vigilant to possible threats in the environment. And that kind of keyed up, anxious state can be very difficult to overcome. And then, our minds also become, we go into a state where we wonder, could this happen again? And we feel like we are constantly on guard for the next possible threat. And so the idea is, how is it that we can begin to essentially come down from this hyperactivated state? So that there are ways that psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors work with people to begin to see things differently, or see things as one once did before the traumatic event. Or so essentially seeing things differently, but then also beginning to work on relaxing the body. So those are the two big places and possibilities. Yeah, that's where change happens.
Let me ask you this, Dr. Mehta. The old adage they used to say, maybe they still say, I have no idea. They say time heals. Does it really heal in this case, or is it just a suppression of what happened?
Well, time does help in the sense that after either whether it be again, trauma that happened as a result of a single event or as a result of something that was repeated over time, time can heal in the sense that if we have stability over an extended period of time, that essentially gives us the feeling that, okay, the world is a safe place again. But if the world if the world doesn't feel safe, or one does not experience safety over a sustained period of time, in that case, it's going to be obviously more difficult. So, for example, say, especially for children who grow up in a war-torn area, that these repeated instances of, that the world is not a safe place, obviously, and then when they come out of it, they need to have a sustained period of stability where those threats in the environment are not going to take place again.
That's a great point. Great point. And let me ask you this, in your experience and your insight, are there differences on the gender and how they respond to trauma? So in other words, does it influence... Go ahead.
That is a great question. It seems that, generally, again, we're speaking in very general terms here, but it seems that women can be a little bit more prone to trauma. Is what we're understanding is women are also a little bit more prone to depression. That just seems to be, that's what the research is showing us right now.
Interesting. Yeah, I can imagine. And how about culture? You brought it up a little bit. You hinted at it a minute ago in regards to these war-torn areas. I know I have some friends who are from Israel, some friends who were actually in Iran during the revolution. These individuals obviously live every day with some sense of underlying apprehension of what's going to happen. Does that also change how they recover from trauma, how they experience trauma?
Well, again, what becomes sort of the baseline level of anxiety is likely to be higher because they are, people who live in parts of the world where there are, where threats really loom at any time. That's just something that, people in these areas coexist with. And so what would happen is they kind of live in, almost like a stress mode, pretty much all the time. And so that coming down from that kind of hyperactivated state, I think would be more challenging than saying somebody who had more stability, experienced a traumatic event, and then had stability after that event.
Oh, that's a good point. Dr. Mehta, so now that we've covered that area, we're heading to the solutions. What are some of the techniques that you found that actually are very effective?
So I think that one thing that I found to be effective is the approach of working to see things differently, but then also helping the body to relax out of that state, where the mind and the body can reconnect. So something that helps trauma victims a lot is to be able to tell their story, begin to have insight around what it is that happened. This is especially true for people who say grew up in very, very abusive family situations where the abuse was chronic, where the environment was unpredictable. And so to be able, sometimes they experience their lives, their childhoods, how they understand themselves in very fragmented ways. And so to be able to have a more comprehensive and sense of how their lives unfolded is really helpful. But to be able to turn it around more comprehensively, more completely, is to help people learn to tolerate anxiety states, and that is with relaxation techniques like breathing, like meditation, like progressive muscle relaxation.
And does cognitive behavioral therapy play a part at all, you think?
It does. I think it can be very helpful in helping people gain new insight and beginning to see their experiences from a different perspective. That can be very helpful. And also, cognitive behavioral therapy can be very helpful in helping people see how it is that they can have influence over their current situation, to have some sense of control over their current environment. And that also helps, when you actually feel like you can influence your life course. A lot of times trauma victims, part of what was so traumatic is they had no control. And so to help people to be able to regain control, cognitive behavioral therapy can be very useful in this regard.
Perfect. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Mehta, for all your insight.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Where can we get more information about you?
drvinitamehta.com. It's all there.
Oh, that's easy. drvinitamehta.com. And you got a book possibly coming out
on Psychology Today.
And Psychology Today?
And Psychology Today, yes.
And you have a book coming out possibly in the fall?
Well, we hope we're looking towards later this year is what our hope is, and it's on romantic relationships from an evolutionary perspective.
Ooh, I like it. Very interesting. Dr. Vinita Mehta, everybody. Dr. Vinita, Vinita, Mehta, HTA.com. Thank you very much, Dr. Mehta, for being here.
Thank you for having me again.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to this conversation. I hope it helped out.